short story collection coming out next year, which I'm hoping I'll read from a couple of times. So I thought I would not read from that tonight, since hopefully you'll hear some of my stories next year. So I'm actually going to read the first chapter of my novel in progress, and I've never read from this. The first chapter is 6 pages, so it functions kind of like a prologue, and it's told in 3 distinct stages or voices, hopefully to prepare you for all the voices in the rest of the book. It might not be totally clear from what you hear, but it's set in the near future, so it takes place about 6 years from now. And I'm calling the genre of the novel pre-apocalyptic. So, every living species, chapter 1. We're doomed. What's the appropriate response? Arrow Sullivan read the headline of the paperless newspaper to her mother and father amongst scattered takeout containers flecked with tostada and relleno. All that styrofoam was made from mycelium. They'd eaten dinner on the deck like they did most summer nights, but this was the first time since their 5 acres of forest had been scorched. Supporters of the aviary say it will be the first living museum, the only place in the world where people can see every species of bird known to humankind. Critics say that this is the first admittance that all the world's species cannot be saved, and a haven for the few serves as an emblem of imminent extinction for the rest. Arrow had a quiet voice, but she enunciated well. She felt hollow since the fire, but now the air was cool and bright with the coming ozone tang of rain. Her mouth was warmed by spice, but she told herself to relax. She looked up at azure sky and iridescent-edged clouds through 2 long purple bangs. Her mother was always reaching to sweep hair out of her eyes. As a child, it felt judgmental and tidying, but now Arrow knew her mother just liked a chance to touch her grown child's face. Arrow had told the stylist she wanted heliotrope hair, and Arrow was always turning towards the sun, even as the ultraviolet burnt her skin, even as she wore hats and salves against it. She basked and baked in the rays, wide cheeks warming, even as people warned her to turn away. And Arrow was always waiting for rain. "I think you two should still go," said Siobhan, Arrow's mom. "You can't do anything about this." She gestured in front of them, blackened trunks of ponderosa and burnt undergrowth. It might be good to get away. Sullivans had lived on these 5 acres for 3 generations. Arrow's grandfather bought and built on the land in the 1960s, and she carried the arrowhead chipped from volcanic glass that he found while laying the foundation, evidence that others had lived here before. She and her father, Grant, had worked for years to protect the land from fire, their acres in the middle of the largest ponderosa pine forest in the world. Throughout the drought in Arizona, they soaked their soil with purchased water along the drip line, the circumference under the longest limbs of each tree, where the roots grew to their thinnest point, best able to drink rain dripping from branches. And they thinned their forest back to the historical average, 80 per acre, trees far enough apart that a crown fire couldn't start. Fire couldn't climb and jump from treetop to treetop. Fire used to come through the forest and clean it, kill the small, weak trees, leave only the large trees behind. But non-native people decided that fire was destructive only and fought it, so the forest thickened to the point that a blaze could annihilate it all. Because of their work, this fire passed through quickly. It charred but didn't kill their trees. Arrow looked out at the obsidian-barked pines, the ash layer over their cinder dirt, stones made by a volcano a millennia ago, and she told herself, this is exactly what was supposed to happen. But it would shock us all over again to see it when we return, Grant said. He and Arrow were both taking it hard, this best-case scenario. Her mother was the optimist. Maybe, Siobhan said. With the monsoons, they'll be here soon, and they might wash away some soot. Her mom wasn't as tied to the land as they both were. She'd moved here from Boston. You have the ticket, she said. You've always wanted to see New York. And the contest, it's a chance to see every kind of bird on Earth. And it's your birthday present. Arrow was turning 21. Arrow had been to Boston, but vacation for her had mostly been camping trips in the states that bordered Arizona. Her mother's family's East Coast snobbery turned her into a West Coast snob. Her cousins summered in Bar Harbor or the Hamptons or Cape Cod, and Arrow didn't remember which was which, and so she would respond, "I'll backpack in Bryce for 2 weeks," or "I'm swamping all summer," and patiently explain hoodoos and her job doing grunt labor for paid tourists down river trips on the Colorado, looking up at the canyon striations. She described to them how different the rapids were now that the river's level was so much lower. Arrow felt ownership of her region. She'd loved to backpack through Europe and Asia like her cousins did, but her parents made less money than her aunts and uncles, and Arrow had to work in the summer to buy books and pay rent. Arrow went to college in Flagstaff, her hometown, because she'd gotten scholarships. She'd seen Las Vegas's version of New York, and Paris, and Cairo, and Bellagio, and now that London was being evacuated, she'd heard that they were building a replica there. But Arrow knew she'd never seen anything like New York City. She wanted to go. She wanted to see it. At the northern tip of Manhattan, the 66 acres of Fort Tryon Park had been transformed into the aviary. Climate zones were built to house 12 of every living species of bird on Earth: polar, desert, coastal, and 3 kinds of forest: deciduous, coniferous, rain. To launch this museum, Cabela's and Cannon teamed up to host the Birds of the World timed birding contest. 1,000 pairs of birders would be the first to see the aviary, and they would compete. 3 days to identify as many species as possible, and on the 4th day, $10 million would be awarded to the first place pair. Each of the 250 sovereign nations had sponsored a team. The United States sponsored 50 indigenous teams. There were 50 indigenous teams representing the rest of the globe. The ACLU sponsored 50 visibility teams made up of underrepresented individuals. Amnesty International sponsored over 100 peace teams, combining members from nations that experienced recent historical conflict, and there were 500 pairs of paying customers. This is what the birds would see if they ventured beyond the climate where they were most comfortable, though they didn't have language to say it. A glare of barren white, a swath of verdant green, scarlet desert sand, a lucent lake, a sea. Alpine lichen abutted Arctic ice, cacti stood adjacent to grassland, and all 3 kinds of forest flanked each other. Leafed, needled, and jungle, just like on the planet, but compressed. No walls separated environments, so contestants would walk under a canopy of branches and arrive in the tropics, moisture streaming from unseen machines in the sky. Nearby, mechanisms massed as stones circulated frigid air in the late New York summer, kept ice intact for a small space, and contraptions released snow every hour on the hour. Chilled air drifted away at the edges, transitioned to a woodland of spruces, firs, and pines. Farther along, contestants could stand between a miniature ocean and a freshwater lake, see 2 shores at once. Sand led to the arid zone, where an apparatus baked the liquid out of the air. The tightest knit of chain link surrounded the park, an optical fiber canopy stretched overhead. Inwood Hill Park had been converted to a campground for the contestants, 196 acres of original forest north of the aviary, the only place in the city you could still see trees that had been alive for over a century. Most New Yorkers thought that all the parks were what was left of prehistoric forest, and skyscrapers had grown around what had been preserved. But in fact, most of Manhattan Island had been flat as a field. Fort Tryon Park had been rocky and thin-soiled until nearly 100 years before, when Frederick Law Olmsted brought in fertile dirt, planted oaks, moved boulders, scooped out promenades. Olmsted positioned every stone in Central Park, situated each tree, dug and filled the lake, then duplicated his work in Fort Tryon. The architects for the Cannon and Cabela's Birds of the World timed birding contest pulled out Olmsted maples, replaced them with palms and pinions. The masses were gathering, preparing to compete to see who could witness the most beauty, bringing their cravings and fancies and fears, drawn as if the colored lines of subway tracks on maps stretched across the globe to wrap people and pull them close. And New York City was planning a party to greet the beginning of the end of the world. American Ballet Theatre would perform a double bill of Swan Lake and Firebird. The Metropolitan Opera would present Die Vogel. The Museum of Natural History would have an exhibit called Extinction, one wing holding paintings, photos, and stuffed specimens of every extinct bird, so contestants could come as close as possible to seeing every species that ever had existed. A wing featuring taxidermy of other extinct animals, a wing of artifacts and relics of extinct peoples and languages, and of course dinosaurs. Revive and Restore sponsored an exhibit called De-Extinct, where you could see live species that had been returned but weren't quite ready for release into the wild. The Cloisters showcased medieval conceptions of birds, tapestries, and illuminated manuscripts. Art galleries hosted Brandon Ballingee's erasures of Audubon's prints, Frederick Murphy and Alicia Conaday's photographs of viruses that could decimate the human population, and photographs from National Geographic entitled What Still Remains. Banksy's retirement project would be to graffiti a bird a day in an obscure location during the month of September, so some could search outside the park. And the Resurrected Roses Turn would host an all-bird name drag show, emceed by Tequila Mockingbird. Every bar would feature bird-themed cocktail specials. Some restaurants would feature fowl-free menus for the duration, while others would run ostrich and squab and quail and pheasant and turkey specials beyond their regular chicken. Come see the spectacle. Celebrate obliteration in all 5 boroughs. London fashion designer Alistair Askold was there to study plumage for his next collection. Local Dominican-Cuban-American film director Ivan Rios was there to teach a course in apocalypse cinema and promote his new movie, Passenger, about de-extinct zombie passenger pigeons. Icelandic climatologist Thorbjorn Hjalmarsson and Baltic climatologist Dalia von Uxel were a team. 2 Vatican priests in vestments, 2 women members of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, 2 female physicists, Thankful Alton, the descendant of a witch with the same name, who was tried in New England 15 generations ago, and the descendant of the minister who tried her, Michael Moody. 2 transgender men, 2 transgender women, a genderless team, a contestant from the Republic of Ireland paired with a contestant from Northern Ireland, Israel and Palestine, Serbia and Bosnia and Herzegovina, Sudan and South Sudan, North Korea and South Korea, Russia and Georgia, China and Tibet, the United States and North Korea, the United States and Vietnam, the United States and Afghanistan, the United States and Iraq, the United States and Iran. An interracial couple from South Africa, 2 gay Saudi men who'd been offered sanctuary in Sweden, animal activists seeking to infiltrate and release the birds, experts with life lists 8,057 birds long, a woman who lives in a walled subdivision of Sao Paulo, and a woman from the favela of Cidade Jus, a team of climate change deniers, Sami from Sweden, Masai from Kenya and Tanzania, Maya from Belize, and 50 US tribal teams, Coeur d'Alene, Nez Perce, Lenape, Abenaki, Kanaka Maoli, Inupiaq, Aleut, Kiowa, Osage, Massachusetts, Narragansett, Lakota Sioux, Dakota Sioux, Salish, Mohawk, Tillamook, Tohono O'odham, Iroquois, Kutchin, Caddo, Catawba, Cayuga, Chippewa, Chickasaw, Chumash, Chinook, Cheyenne, Cherokee, Crow, Creek, Comanche, Apache, Arapaho, Powhatan, Penobscot, Pequot, Pawnee, Absentee Shanti, Duckwater Shoshone, Paiute, Ute, Blackfeet, Hopi, Dene, Hualapai, Havasupai, Ho-Chunk, Kickapoo, Acoma, and Zia, which is less than 5% of the tribes that exist. 2 Appalachian miners who removed the top of their own mountain. Citizens of Nagorno-Karabakh Republic, citizens of Pridnestrovin Moldavian Republic, Republic of Abkhazia, Taiwan, Gibraltar, Greenland, Brunei, Seychelles, and a team from the underwater nation of Kiribati, a country with no land but citizens. Arrow and Grant Sullivan were there to see it. Academy was hired as mercenary security in case problems arose. Thank you.